Hey, welcome to the Wise Guys, the #1 BYU sports live stream show in the world. Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler. We love Tuesday nights. We're going to announce our roll call for everybody. DJ, will you show Blaine so everyone knows he's with us here?
Wait, I'm here.
There you go. All right.
I mean, they just assumed I was here.
I know, but
although I have done a couple of shows.
Yeah.
I did a show from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then I
New
do a show
York.
from New York.
Right.
Yeah, so I've done a couple of shows from other places, but I'm here tonight. Thank goodness.
So we got a lot of folks coming in. Steve Young's here. Oh, you know what? The previous 65 shows have all led up to this show tonight. Our show before BYU starts its first season as a member of the Big 12 and a Power 5 football conference member. It's all led up to this, and we are so excited to have everybody with us tonight.
Jonathan Ashcroft was the very first one in tonight. We always recognize the first person in. Says it's that time. Can't wait to hear from everybody tonight. Love the show, guys. Coming from Henderson, Nevada. Mark Axel is always right up there at the top. Best night of the week. Appreciate you guys.
How about Jeff Dole? First time catching you guys live from Los Gatos, California.
Hey, and Ruthie 5358, always on with us every week. Only 4 days till game day. That's what we're talking about. We're all excited. And then is it 1010 for Eva? Checking in from Melissa, Texas. Let's go.
Melissa, Texas.
We're grateful for all of you that are with us all the time. Remember to follow us on YouTube. We'll put the link in the chat for YouTube so that you can follow us there. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. And then we're also live on Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com, wiseguys.com. Hey, any way you can get with us, subscribe. Nothing is going to cost anything for you to subscribe and be part of this. But that helps us to be able to continue to do this show.
Shout out to Amber from New York and Spencer from Lubbock back with us. David's from Rexburg, Idaho. What do we got? BYU Sports Addict from Farmington.
Yeah.
I was at Rick's College for 1 year. It was
Yes,
so
you were.
cold. I vowed never to return, and I've never been back.
One time I had a meeting in Rexburg in the winter. Hey, and how about Robbie here in from Dallas, who joins us quite a bit. 1 year I had a meeting in Rexburg, and I drove. It was cold here, but I mean like cold, like it was like 8 here. I got in the car, I drove to Rexburg. When I opened the door and the wind was blowing, it was almost like it came in the car and bit me. I went into the meeting. I did the meeting. I said, by the way, what's the temperature outside?
Yeah.
And they said, it's 16 degrees below zero. And I was like, thank you for that. After the meeting, I was supposed to stay over. I walked out to my car. I got in the car, and I drove back home.
Yeah, you did the right thing.
Like, no.
I walked to school one morning. It was so cold. When you'd breathe in, your nose would freeze, and you'd breathe out, and it would thaw. That's how I entertained myself walking down
Craziness.
to campus.
So
Hey, follow us at ysguys.com, ysguys.com. Subscribe, get our weekly email with highlights. It's all free. We encourage you to check out our library of interviews ranging from Danny Ainge to Marie Osmond, from Kyle Van Noy to Sherry Dew. They're all waiting for you at ysguys.com. 80 minutes with Tom Homo a couple weeks ago.
If you didn't hear that Tom Homo interview, you just got to go on because it's just so fun to have our athletic director for 80 minutes straight and have just a chance to talk about all topics BYU in the Big 12. So if you didn't get a chance to see that one live or to listen to the podcast, go back and download that one or take it with you out on your bike ride and listen to Tom Homo.
Shout out to Dirk, BYU class of 82 when Tom Homo was playing football. Las Vegas.
Yeah, Dr. Ketch always in from
Doc.
From
and
Las
here's
Vegas.
this. We got a question from Dave and Blaine. I live in England without access to ESPN, so we'll no longer be able to watch BYU Sports Live. Is anything going to be done for fans like me where games are made available? Love the podcast. Thanks, Alan. They won't be available on BYU TV henceforth, with the exception of men's volleyball, so you'll still be able to get that. ESPN Plus is going to have a bulk of the BYU action in all sports. And then, of course, you got the mothership, ESPN and Fox. And they've got their apps. I think if you have Wi-Fi, you can get the ESPN Plus app, even if ESPN isn't available on your channel in England. So I think that's the situation that we're dealing with. But we're just so glad to have a viewer from England. That's our first from the United Kingdom.
And by the way, a lot of our stuff that we are doing in terms of studio stuff, so after further review that we taped today, not tonight, but moving forward, after further review will not only be available on BYU TV and that BYU app, but it will be available on ESPN Plus. So a lot of the shows that we're doing during the week will also be available on ESPN Plus for BYU TV, just not the other way around. So
Mike Just Me from Beaumont, Texas. You know who's in Texas tonight? The Florida Gators.
that's right.
And then they'll come to Utah and play the Utes on Thursday night. They had to get out of Florida because of the hurricane.
My favorite comment so far is from 1010 for Eva. My employer is getting bare minimum from me this week. I'm in game mode.
It is game week.
I feel you for sure, because that's how I feel. It's all everything just points to Saturday, and I can't wait.
Now, if you've never been on our live stream, hop on there and let us know where you're viewing from anywhere in the world, and we'll try to give you a shout out. It's our way of showing that this show is really the number one BYU sports live stream in the world, because the whole world has access to us, and that folks are watching and being entertained or entertaining us from all over the place.
We love it. Linda
going.
Murray's always with us. Thanks, Linda, from Colorado, for being there. I love when the new ones pop up too.
Yeah.
I love our loyal fans, but I also love when somebody pops up, and we've had Panama in South America.
Yeah, we had who do we have?
The Philippines, Japan. We had South Korea one week.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
And now we find out England, which I love. So.
And now Vernal, Utah, checking in.
And Vernal, hey, that's out there.
Hey, Jay.
It's out in the basin. It's out there. It's kind of like England, only closer.
It's its own kingdom, that's for sure. All right, here's what we got coming up on the show. It's game week. BYU has a season opener Saturday night against Sam Houston at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. We got plenty on that coming up.
Yeah, and we've got, if you haven't heard, we've got Steve Young coming up in just about 13 minutes. Steve Young's going to join us.
And we're going to have Steve Young for a while. If you got a question for Steve Young, send it to us.
Yep. And then, and joining us at the end of Steve's segment will be Elder Vai Sikahema, or as we know him, Vai Sikahema, BYU legend, former Pro Bowl punt returner for the Philadelphia Eagles, and now general authority. He's coming on with us here. So what a show to kick off Big 12 week.
Steve from Olympia, Washington's here. Craig's from Billings, Montana. Checking out the Wise Guys. It's cut down day in the NFL. So which Cougars survive? We're going to run down that list. There's a couple surprises on there. Guys who've earned jobs in the NFL. And Southfield is getting ready for a mega showdown in women's soccer of the likes we have not seen, maybe ever.
Right.
With BYU at number 7 in today's poll. They were 9 in one poll, 7 in the other, and UCLA number 1.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. That's coming up later in the week.
Number ones that come to Provo? I'm just thinking about Gonzaga, but well, that was up there when they were 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wait, did we beat them at our place at the Marriott Center basketball when they were 1, or was that up there?
I think they were 2 or 3 when we beat them down here.
Okay.
They knocked us around most of the time, but we got them a few.
And what was Miami when they came into Lavelle Edwards?
They were number 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe that's what's in the back of my mind.
Maybe that is. That's always in the front of our mind.
It should be in the front of my mind. I called that game for Pete's sakes. I'm just getting old, I guess. So
hey, let's kick things off with the head coach, Kalani Sitake. Here is what he said about Saturday's game to the media to kick off game week. Coach Sitake.
All right, thank you. Game week, we're really excited. Just looking forward to the matchup with Sam Houston, and we're watching film. We've known this for a while now, but our focus has been after getting done with camp, middle of last week, has been shifted to preparing for Sam Houston and this season. But really well coached team. Looking at Casey Keeler, their head coach, it starts with him. He's if you know anything about football, he's one of the best coaches in college football. And so really excited to see him and meet him and talk to him in midfield. But as you watch film and you see the things that they've done as a program, he's been around for a long time and had success everywhere he's been. And so he's won national championships. That's what he does. And he won at Delaware national championship, did the same thing at Sam Houston not long ago. I believe it's 2021. So there's guys on that team that have won a national championship and have seen success. And I think last year they went through a transition where they knew they were going into an FBS, that they were going to be an FBS program, and with it not being an opportunity for them to play in the postseason, even in the playoffs, a lot of those guys are hungry to get to this year, and a good number of them redshirted, played their 4 games. And so we see on film, watched all the film, and just tons of athleticism and tons of talent and really well coached. And so it's going to be an exciting game. We're excited to be here at home, and it's a home opener, and looking forward to this season. It's now come. I mean, it's, we've been fielding these questions for a long time, since even spring ball. And now that we're here, it's game week, and the guys are really excited, and we're ready to roll.
That is head coach Kalani Sitake, and as we react to that, we do want to welcome in a few folks. I saw White Plains, New York, Bountiful, Utah, and a few others checking in with the head coach. What do we know about the Bearcats with a K coming in from Sam Houston?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, White Plains, Eric Roberts is saying, where's the homestead here? He's asking me. So just up the road from you, Eric, I'm up in Elmira is where I grew up, up the road. Just get on Route 17 and follow it along that Pennsylvania border, and you're going to go right through my town. The billboard's down, though, town of Blaine, that's down.
They took it down?
I'm just too old. So, let's talk about the Bearcats a little bit. This is a team that hangs its hat on defense. And Kalani mentioned Casey Keeler. You guys have to understand how good a football coach Casey Keeler is. As he mentioned, they won a Division I AA national championship at Delaware way back in 2003. He was the head coach there for a number of years. He went to Delaware to college, and then he won a national championship at Sam Houston State and what we now call FCS in the spring of 2021. And in between, he's been to just every, semifinal and final you can think of. ESPN recently listed him as one of the top 150 football coaches of all time. He's a defensive-minded coach. This team is going to be well coached on defense. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to be well coached. They have some athletes on defense. They're in a little bit of an interesting dilemma, because in making this move from FCS to FPS to step up and play, at a higher level, they redshooted an enormous number of their players last year to get them to be back for this season. So a lot of guys are going to be playing that didn't play last year, and they were, they didn't have a great stellar record last year. They're 5-4 because of that. But you got to remember, the previous 2 seasons they were 21-1 in FCS. So this is a high level program. Think Appalachian State before they made the transition, right? Yeah. Remember when they went up and beat Michigan? Offensively is where they struggled this last season the most. They didn't get consistent quarterback play. Keegan, their quarterback, is back, but he's coming back off of a year where he completed 47% of his passes. He only threw for 1,100 yards. They have to fix that passing game if they think they're going to compete this season in their new conference. And clearly they're going to have to throw the ball better against BYU. They've got a solid run game. They've got a solid defense. I think what happens in this game for BYU is that BYU's big guys up front on both sides of the ball wear these guys down over the course of the game. This is a game that might stay close for a little while, and that might surprise some people. And I think BYU's size and physicality maybe wears them down over a period of time, and eventually BYU pulls away in this game. But this is not a bad FCS team. Like, this is a very good program.
They should be able to hang for a little while.
And they're extremely well coached. Do not undersell how good a coach Casey Keeler is. He's a very, very good football coach.
So it gets going. It's a late one, 8:15 p.m. here local time. And Marvin, by the way, from Harriman, Raymond from St. George, Tim from Harriman. Cities in the great state of Utah. On the Wise
Spencer
Guys
McMillan
tonight.
says, hey, they're keeping who's starting quarterback a secret, which is true.
Yeah.
BYU's announced as Keaton Slovis. There's a couple of transfers. A transfer from North Texas, Gunnell, who's been around a couple of places.
And hasn't played a lot since Arizona a few years ago.
Right, and Ward transferred down from Washington State, and his quarterback job's been up for grabs. All 3 of those guys are mobile, can throw the ball around. I mean, the bottom line is, if you're going to throw the football, it takes more than just a quarterback, and it was a real area of concern last year, and they're trying to focus on getting better in that area. But they'll be able to run the ball a little bit, so it'll be fun. Kate
Porter from South Jordan, Utah, is with us tonight. DJ, will you show the picture of the uniforms? BYU announced what they're going to look like on opening night, and we'll try to describe it if you're just listening. If you're watching, you can see it's going to be the royal helmets, the royal tops, white pants with the royal trim. And there's been a little debate as to, is the face mask white or is it gray? The pictures we're looking at here looks like it's gray. But this is the same look that they wore when they beat Baylor last year. and they're rolling it out to beat another team from Texas, Sam Houston, on Saturday. So that's the look for the Cougars. And
I like the royal jerseys, the royal helmets, and the white pants. I think it's a clean look. The traditional look for BYU is the white pants, and then the white helmet. So you kind of go white on the bottom, royal in the middle, white on top, and that's their traditional look. That's the one that Kalani likes. So, hey, that's funny, by the way. Kay Porter says, hey, Blaine needed to erase the blackboard behind him. That play could be crucial Saturday.
It might be.
Sam Houston may have spies out watching this show.
Hey, Timothy from
that's not a play, by the way.
Perth, Australia, here with us on the Wise Guys tonight. So, Timothy, thank you. John is with us from Arizona, in Camp Verde, Arizona. Doug just jumped on the front runner train in Farmington. We're on the move with Doug tonight.
Don't you love it when Perth, Australia just checks in?
I just love it.
I love when Perth, Australia just checks in with us.
And there's a question here, a local radio show reporting that Hinkley Rapati is out for the season. We don't know if he's out for the season. We know that he is out. That's why he's not on the depth chart. And we'll see. He's got just the year left after the transfer.
Right.
And
he does have a red shirt available.
Does he have a red shirt?
Yeah. So if this is something that keeps him out longer than they hope, then there's a possibility he could redshirt and come back, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're just evaluating what they need.
So
to do
nothing official from the university, but when you look at the depth chart and you don't see him anywhere, that tells you that he's dealing with some challenges. Some information on our broadcast, DJ, if you put that up for game day on Saturday. And Steve Young's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. Hang with us and bring us your questions. Season premiere Saturday night, 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain on BYU TV. We'll be live with the fans at Cougar Canyon, just outside Lavelle Edwards Stadium for the first hour. Then we're going to move our broadcast platform inside the stadium to show you all the festivities. 2 hours of pregame coverage, including interviews with Kalani Sitake and Keaton Slovis, expert analysis from Blaine, David, Nixon, Brian Logan, Spencer Linton will have interviews as well. And then BYU and Sam Houston, 10:15 Eastern, 8:15 Mountain on FS1, followed by our live post-game show on BYU TV. That's all Saturday night on BYU TV, and the weather's going to be perfect for football.
Yes, it's supposed to be temperatures in the low 70s at kickoff. Could it be any better than that?
That's going to be awesome.
So, hey, Derek Day family, tuning in from Maryland. We'd love people from Maryland being on the show with us. So
we
appreciate
do love
you being
people
in there.
from Maryland. Remember, we were back there. It's Grantsville, Utah. Hello.
Yep.
Good to have Jerry with us.
Jerry in.
Boy, I tell you, the live stream is active tonight.
Yeah.
It's just,
and then is it Bully Coug?
It looks like it.
Bully Coug 8. We don't actually endorse bullying, but we will endorse Billy Coug or Bully Coug. And yeah, Steve Young, favorite football player of all time. Well, you're going to get to talk to him here or listen to him here in just a minute. So
NFL cuts today. Let's roll them down before we bring Steve in. There's 14 Cougars that have made NFL rosters. Let's run down the list. There's a couple of surprises and there's some expectations.
Yeah, so expectations. Yeah, Tyler Algier with the Falcons still. Brady Christensen with the Panthers still. Michael Davis with the Chargers. Those are all starters. Those are all expected, right?
Jaron Hall has made the Vikings. Kyrus Tonga back with the Vikings, starting nose tackle. Dax Milne has made it for another year in the NFL with the Commanders. Former walk-on at BYU.
Year 3 for Dax Milne. That's pretty awesome. Puka Nacua with the Rams. That's not surprising because all indications out of camp were that he was having a tremendous fall camp. So Puka Nacua with the Rams. And Sione Takitaki, that's expected with the Browns. He's been a mainstay with the Browns. We injured last year, but back and healthy.
Zach Wilson with the Jets. Jamal Williams, Taysom Hill with the Saints.
No surprise with any of those.
Blake Freeland.
Yeah, no surprise with Blake Freeland and the Colts, right? He draft pick. Yeah, it was good that the Niners kept Fred Warner.
Yeah, that's a smart move by the Niners. But how about this one, which is a bit of a surprise? Chris Brooks makes the Dolphins.
Yeah, of the entire list, that's great news. Like, a lot of these were expected, but hey, Chris Brooks, that's awesome. So
Chris Brooks joins Tyler Algier and Jamal Williams as BYU running backs in the NFL. You want to be a running back like Aiden Robbins? Why is he here at BYU? Because those guys are in the league.
Absolutely.
All right, some Cougars that were cut.
Yeah, Matt Bushman. That one's surprising a little with the Chiefs.
Now, these guys could re-sign with the practice squads.
Right. Or they could get picked up. I'll tell you one that I think is going to maybe get picked up by somebody else. But Matt Bushman with the Chiefs. James Empey was released by the Packers.
Caleb Hayes had a really good preseason.
This is Caleb Hayes. You just kept hearing, wow, he surprised everybody. Remember he ran that 4.340 when they timed him. Don't be surprised if Caleb Hayes doesn't get signed to the practice squad, but maybe somebody else picks him up here.
Yeah. Tomasi Lalile from the Broncos was let go. D'Angelo Mandel cut from the Cowboys. Chris Wilcox from the Steelers. And this one surprised me with Tyson Williams. He had a good preseason.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of depth at Arizona, but the Cardinals waived him.
I really thought Tyson would make the Cardinals. Did not, but I would very much expect Tyson to get picked up at least on a practice squad for now.
So the season opener is September 7th, the Lions and the Chiefs. By the way, Andy Reid also made the cut.
Yeah, it's amazing how Andy made the cut again.
With a win next Thursday, as we say hello to Neil from Tucson. Hey, Neil. With a win next Thursday, Andy Reid will pull even with the legendary Tom Landry for 4th all-time in NFL history with 270 wins. And then the next week, he's going to have 4th to himself. Or the week after that, but he's going to win 2 games, and that'll put him in there.
Hey, Brent just says, I met Blaine when he accompanied his dad, who was branch president in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. I was a missionary there. Even then, he could tell he was going to be a star. That's really, really nice of you, Brent. Those were great days when our family would travel down to Pennsylvania for church, spend the whole day down there Sunday with amazing people down in Pennsylvania. That's a great memory for me, Brent. That's cool that you served your mission back there.
Let's get some soccer news and then some volleyball news as we anticipate Steve joining us. BYU moving up to number 7 in the national polls after beating Long Beach State and Boise State last week. That sets up a showdown Thursday at South Field here on campus. It's number 1 UCLA at 3-0, and it's number 7 BYU at 4-0, 8 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN Plus. So that is Thursday night. Might be one of the biggest home matches in the history of Jen Rockwood's soccer program, which is fantastic. But, man, number 1 against number 7, and BYU has a team that can beat number 1.
That's what I was just going to say, is like, so here comes number 1. Now, when number 1 Miami comes into it was Cougar Stadium back at that time. It wasn't LaVelle Edwards Stadium at that time, right? But when they come in, did any of us had any expectation that BYU could pull up the biggest upset in college football that year and beat the number 1 Canes, right?
Right.
None of us thought. We in the back of your mind, it was like, wouldn't that be amazing? But here comes the number 1 soccer team in America into Provo, and I'm going, hey, there's a good chance number 1 goes down. That's how good this women's soccer program is right now, where our expectations are that they can take down number 1 at home. It's the most impressive home field advantage in college in women's college soccer. Would you agree with that?
It really is. And the last time BYU hosted a number 1 team was 2018. Stanford came in and beat them 2-0. But this is a better BYU team than 2018. So that's the showdown on Thursday. And we look forward to that. Women's volleyball, they jumped to number 9 in the top 25 after knocking off Pittsburgh, who was number 5, 3-1 in convincing fashion. They've got the home opener Wednesday, tomorrow night, against LMU. That's at 7 Mountain Time on ESPN+. It is, by the way, our first guest tonight is the author of the new book, The Law of Love. He and his wife, Barbara, have 4 children. By the way, he also has 3 Super Bowl rings. So between the 3 of us, there's an NFL Hall of Famer, a college football Hall of Famer, and a BYU Athletic Hall of Famer, and a BYU Law School grad. So that we combine to make quite a group. It's our pleasure to welcome our friend Steve Young to the Wise Guys. Steve, thanks for joining us.
You bet. I'm just fixing my camera here. Hold on.
we can hear you.
There he is. Hey. There he is. So,
hey, look.
Wait, where are you right now? You're not home. Are you at
I'm
the office?
Oh, I'm at the office.
I was expecting you from being at the office at home, and you're in the office over in Palo Alto. So cool. I love the helmets on the back wall, though. That's awesome. So,
yeah, that's a COVID situation where my partner of 25 years, Rich Lawson, sits over here in the same office. We've been together since I retired, and he's like, I'm like Oscar, he's like Felix, right? Everything has to be perfect, and so we have all these helmets for our golf tournaments, and that's how those are the prizes. And so in the corner is this big pile of stuff. He couldn't take it anymore. So during COVID, he hung it all up so that it's very clean and pure. So
I remember. I do have to say, Steve, I remember what model of Oldsmobile were you driving around when we were in school? That big old Oldsmobile. Was it
Dynamic 88?
Yeah, Dynamic 88. It wasn't the most orderly car I've ever seen. I have to say that. So when you say your Oscar, I believe that. So
yeah, no. Look, I'm not a slob. I'm in motion.
You are in motion. You've been in
Like
motion.
life is in motion, and so I'm organized, but I don't have to have everything put away.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like
You know where it is.
organized, it's set. I don't need to be freaked out about it.
yeah, but so and I appreciate that about you. So how about Barb though? Like your beautiful wife Barb.
Luckily, here's the deal. I am generally like, let's score. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to move the ball. We're going to score.
Right.
Barb is very much more about the detail. Like, where are you? How are you lined up? What is exactly the timing of the route? That's the Bill Walsh. You know what I mean? And so we're a great marriage because I am not detail oriented. She is dramatically detailed. And I will tell you, our marriage for 24 years, that has been the issue. Like, I remember we were getting married and the wedding dinner, and she said, okay, so here's the menu. Everyone has to choose fish or beef. And so you have to go through your whole family and decide for the wedding dinner who's going to have what. And I'm like, and she kept asking me. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll get to it. She says, look, I need to know. And so I told her, honey, everyone in my family wants beef. 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 That's what we're doing. And that inflamed her to no end. And she actually talked about like how she considered, like, do I really want to marry a guy that can't worry about those kind of details about what people are going to eat at the wedding dinner? Then what? And it really was a signal for me. And I told her, for 24 years, I have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am on the move. I have gotten better, and it's taken some time, but I truly appreciate detail. I appreciate life of detail, and I have learned how to recognize that it's an important part of my life. So my marriage has brought me a sense of value to the details of life, and that's why my desk is just a couple of papers. So that's it.
Yeah. I have to say though, Steve, you made a comment that you and Barb, like, you're not exactly the same. You're like the yin and the yang and all that, and I would vouch for that as I've watched you guys over the years.
Yeah, we're not opposites. We're not opposites.
No, she's really good at some things that you're not. You're really good at some things that she's not, and you guys have this beautiful thing where it just works so well together. Isn't that what it's all about? That's what marriage is all about, right?
It is beautiful, and you talked about the Law of Love book. That's the journey I've been on, to share a way forward, an authentic way forward. For me, spiritually, that I was able to, have a gift from being around her. So that's that.
We got a few questions about that book with you before our live streams happen tonight. Corey Eshimer, our friend over in Japan, says, "Love you, Steve. You signed and sent a personalized photo to me when I had open heart surgery when I was 13. Still have it and hangs in my office in Tokyo today."
And by the way, Steve, Corey, who comes on and streams in every week, Corey, for the most part, runs the PGA Tour in Asia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he served a mission in Japan. He has some Japanese ancestry. He was over there. He married a girl from there. And when PGA Tour, he was working for like a banking company. When the PGA Tour found out that he was over there and that he spoke English and he played the game of golf and all this, I mean, he was a shoo-in, and he's been over there ever since. And he runs that thing over there. And I did not know this, but he says that back when he was 13 and had open heart surgery, you sent him a signed photo, and he's got that in his office at the PGA offices in Japan. That is really cool. All these years later, we find out about that story.
I got to be honest with you. There's times where I've run into people that have had that kind of dramatic feeling for something that I've done for them, and what it makes me think, because it's so easy for me to do something small that has a big effect, and I'm drawn to wishing that I could have done that for 1,000 people, but I do what I see in front of me. But how much you wish you could make people's lives better if you could just know, so many times you just don't know. And I love hearing about that because especially Barb loves to hear it because when we first got married, I'd be in a group of people and a lot of people would want an autograph or something. And I'd kind of move through them and kind of be as kind as I can, but we got to go, and she'd say, why don't you stop and sign everything? And I'm like, well, because can't do that. We got to go. And she goes, well, I think you're making a mistake. I think you should take the time. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And in fact, whenever she said, especially if someone's wearing your jersey, Steve, if someone's wearing your jersey, that's a sacred act, man. We got to sign every jersey. And so I go, okay, honey, I promise you, if I ever see someone with my jersey on, I will sign it. I don't care if we. And so we're driving down the highway coming back. I think it was a 49er game. We're driving down the highway and we're passing a car. And a guy is like, they see me and they're saying, he's got my jersey on. And Barb looks at me like,
you said, you promised.
He's in a car on a highway. We can't do it. So she's like, you promised me. So I go, can you pull over? We pull over, we sign it.
Oh my goodness.
Side of the highway. And he loved it and it was amazing and for him. But I just like, Barb, I don't think we should do that on the highway.
Hey, I love the line in your book that reads, "The law of love is undefeated." Expound on that and your motivation to write that book.
That's great. So I think it's important to define the law of love, which is loving as God loves, which if you think about the scripture, my work and my glories bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. What God gets glory through our glory. So in other words, his love for us is outward. In other words, I don't receive, there's no deal that I'm making. I only receive through my love for you is to grow and receive glory. And that's the idea. That's the whole point of life. And so if we're going to do that, then we need to receive, how we receive glory is through others and seeing others and watching for them and having a language of healing and peace and prosperity and abundance and what do my relationships look like? And in doing that, that's how to me, that's the irony of the quote from the scriptures, lose yourself and you'll find yourself, is that the irony is in loving as God loves, which is the law of love and seeking other people's healing. That's how you receive, ironically, the full measure of heaven. And so doing that, law of love is undefeated because all the other laws of God are kind of this world. They're more self-interested, things that I do to receive things, kind of like transactional. I'm going to be obedient because then I'm going to receive something. Yeah. And anything that's self-interested over time, no matter how righteous, will rot in self-interest. And the only things that are perpetual, the only thing that last forever is outwardly seeking others' healing. And so if you think about a law that has to be, if there's a law in heaven, it has to be a perpetual law. It can't rot. It can't, and so that's the idea that it's undefeated forever. If you're ever down, it's like, that's why I say we're always called wounded healers. The wounded healers of the world, that's all of us. That's our capacity, because we're all wounded. We all have the capacity to heal others. And as we seek Moroni, I always say, if I ever get a tattoo, I'm going to have it say Moroni 7.
Yeah.
That's where it starts and stops and ends right there, is the idea that we can have transfigured eyesight to see other humans as God sees other humans. And in that sacred way, we have in the restored gospel an ability to understand why, because of pre-existence, because we're all divine, because heavenly parents that have a design for us to grow. All of that gives us a great superstructure to understand what we're trying to do. And then all we're supposed to do is help the Savior in the atonement extend into every relationship wherever we are. And I always tell people, what relationships? Well, every relationship. I was just at the left. I was just late here trying to turn left at the green light, the arrow behind a guy, and the arrow turned green and he didn't go. And I'm going to be late for you guys. And now we're in a relationship. We're in a relationship. And so what's the most healing, peaceful, kind of abundant way to deal with that relationship that I'm in now? And I decided that despite my desire to honk, I decided to just take a breath. Just breathe through it. If he misses the whole light, maybe I'll figure out how to say something to him. But I don't know if he'll miss the whole light. So just let it breathe. And then he saw it, left, and went on. And then he and I are now in a more abundant relationship because he's not, because you get honked on the nose.
Amen to that. I got to read the book in a unique way, Steve. So you gave the book to Dallas, my son-in-law, who you're really close to my daughter Libby and to my son-in-law Dallas, who you guys have been so gracious to. So he had notes all in the margins, and then he read the book, and then he left the book at our house with the notes. So I got to read through it with Dallas's notes. So I got all of your wisdom, and then I got Dallas's interpretation of that wisdom in the margins, which was a really cool way for me to read that book, and I loved it. In the book, I mean, you gathered perspectives from a wide range of individuals. And what surprised you the most as you did the research for that book?
Well, the research of that book was living my own life out and trying to find with all the complexities of life and all the spiritual complexities, and how even in scripture it's complex. Like there's just, and how do I can't bind it all together. It falls apart. And so I think the biggest surprise to me was how much I, in trying to find what lasts forever. I have a durable spirit inside of myself that's supposed to have lasted forever. And it's not of this place. What else is not of this place that's going to last forever? What can I trust? And in so doing, they always say there's 4 power words. Or no. People always say, well, I want to be a great disciple. What do I do? What do I do? And then of course there's going to be a long list of things to do. And I found that in the doing, it was more transactional, and it didn't feel like it was forever. Didn't feel perpetual. And then I realized that there's a few times that in scripture they talk about ways to sacredly hold healing power. And there's 4 states of being. And so instead of doing stuff, and that was the most, you asked me what was the most surprising thing in my diligence of it, was finding out that I wasn't supposed to be doing anything, I was supposed to be being things. And the 4 things I'm supposed to be, the language of and the actions of, are long-suffering, gentle persuasion, meekness, and love unfeigned. And in being those things, like, okay, what is the language of long-suffering? What would if I'm in a relationship, whatever it is, marriage or on the street at the green light, what is the language of long-suffering? What is the action of gentle persuasion? What is what is love? What is the most loving thing? And so in that doing, sorry, I didn't mean doing, in the being of those things, I found heaven unlocked for me. And so that was the greatest irony that made it very clear to me that I need to share this with my family. That's why I wrote it. And then, then it got, then it is where it is today.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I love that thought, because in a nutshell, it's about stop worrying about doing and focus more on being, and that can change your whole perspective on everything, right?
Because we're not looking to go rest in a perpetual place we're in a perpetual state of being, and that being needs to start by the selfless act of seeing others as Moroni begged us to do. And speaking of Dallas and Libby, your daughter, I have to say this. Dallas, I love Dallas, but Libby is one of the greatest humans I've ever met. And so I don't know, Blaine, how that happened.
You know Brenda. You know how it happened.
It seems greatly ironic, but she's one of the greatest humans I've ever known. So I'm so grateful for you to share her with me.
It's been no, you guys have been, you and Barb have been so good to Libby, and you've been family to Libby, you're family to us, and so if people that don't know that Barb and Steve just put their arms around Dallas and Libby when they were over at Stanford and just took care of him, took him in his family, and we'll never forget that.
They took care of us. Let's be honest, and they continue to take care of us in really unique ways because of the trust that we've developed with each other, and those are hard relationships to come by in the world, and I'm very grateful for it.
The book is called The Law of Love. It's available through Deseret Book. Steve Young's on the Wise Guys tonight, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. By the way, we had dinner with Sherry Dew the other night.
Yeah,
she
Thursday night.
Best.
She said to give you a hug,
Really?
so we're going to give you a virtual hug. We love Sherry.
I didn't know you guys were big time.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Oh, all right. I
She
didn't realize Wise Guys was out with the elite.
Listen, we're making headway with all your friends.
Sherry was on the show a few weeks ago, and we went to dinner with her, and it was the funnest thing, Steve, because you remember Robert Parker, RP, our running back from the old days. He's the maitre d' at Ruth's Chris. And
really?
he came in and all dressed up. He looks fantastic. He's doing fantastic. And Sherry gave him a big hug and met him, and he got done with his shift. And Sherry and I were talking about when you play on a team, because Sherry, most people don't know, was a two-time first team All-State basketball player, right?
Yeah.
Great
athlete.
basketball player, right?
Great athlete.
So we were talking about teams and brotherhood and all of that. So Robert says, "Hey guys, I gotta go. My shift is done. Love you guys," and he walks outside. And then three of our other teammates, Courtney Rogers leading the pack, and a couple of other guys, they're in town from Southern California on business, and they've rented Vespas, and they're just driving down the street, and they see Robert Parker. So they pull over and say, RP. And RP says, "Hey, guess what? Blaine's in Ruth's Chris right here." And they go, "Can we see him?" They're in bike helmets, T-shirts, and raggedy shorts. And RP's like, "Of course you can." So RP comes back into Ruth's Chris, parades these guys through the whole thing, comes back, and we introduce them to Sherry, and we have a nice visit right there. And then Sherry says, "That's what you're talking about. That's what Band of Brothers is." I go, "That is what Band of Brothers is right there. You just come off the street when you find out your brother's in the building, and you just come see him." It was really, really fun. So.
And I appreciate Tom Holmoe really focusing on, and I know you mean this when you say that, Band of Brothers, the Band of Sisters as well. Like, there is a wholeness to our athletic department that Tom has brought that has elevated, and anyone, like, he's so focused on making sure that there's no one that's marginalized in the athletic department. And I love that. And so the Band of Brothers really is the Band of Sisters too, because it feels like, even when, my little Summer is going to be a senior in high school this year, and she's qualified out of nowhere. Last month of May, she tried high jumping, then qualified for the state finals. And so suddenly she's jumped high enough to be recruited. And so we went up to Oregon she was invited to the Nike tournament. I don't know the
Invitational. The Invitational.
And met with BYU coaches. And the coaches at BYU, especially track, they're just unique wonderful humans. And so Tom has just created this thing that I want to extend out into the world, and has so much, and that's that Band of Brothers that we've been talking about forever. There is a connection that is deep that goes through the athletic department, and I feel that in amazing ways.
Steve, Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, died on this day in 1877.
I don't know that.
What has it meant to you to represent that last name as the great-great-great-grandson?
Well, I mean, I don't think about that a lot. I think that at the time there was all kinds of challenges in getting talk about a band of people just that are trying to survive, and then expanding and flourish. And really so much of the West was settled by those pioneer people and the stories. And I don't know if you've ever been cold in your life outside, and if you've ever been too hot outside and not protected, and like how do people make it? And all those years and all that suffering and all those people that have made the West of America what it is, and our religion what it is. I'm grateful for the sacrifice for people, and he was the one who did it. I mean, I'll be the first team to tell you that he's not perfect. He is not a perfect person, and in history we recognize that there was foibles made, but we can appreciate all of the things that happened that were amazing in developing out of the rock, clawing it out of the rock. And I'm very grateful. And I take that toughness and diligence and sense of sacrifice, certainly kind of feel like a real sense of pride about that.
Steve Young's with us on Wise Guys. Super Bowl MVP in 1994, in the NFL Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, the BYU Hall of Fame. I mean, those are titles we use for Steve all the time. I think Steve would just be as proud to say great dad, great husband, great friend, because those are always just as important to Steve. We have to talk a little bit of football. We want to talk all these things because these things are so important and so fun to talk about, and people don't get to hear it. But BYU's starting a brand new quarterback, and you are a kingpin in that tradition. The greatest success of any quarterback post BYU in BYU history. So you're part of that great tradition. So now all of a sudden, Keaton Slovis is going to take the field, and I know that you got his number this afternoon from Dave, and we hope you're going to reach out to him. That's fantastic. He seems like a phenomenal human, as Dave and I have had a chance to interact with him. What would you tell him as he takes the field for the first time in a Cougar uniform?
Well, I don't want to burden somebody. The job is already really hard. And so I would want him to take in a sense of history and the success of other quarterbacks before him as and in the spirit of, I don't want it to be pressure. I don't want it to be expectations. I want it to be an invitation to go be great. And I think that anyone who plays quarterback needs lots of help. And so hopefully he gets that help. And I love, in the last 3 or 4 years, the offense and A-Rod and what he's done and how he thinks about offense is how I feel Kyle Shanahan feels about offense and how Randy Reed feels about offense. There's an innovative mind. He's not unafraid, and he's obviously someone who can coach the position. And there are so few places, Blaine, that in the pros and in college that really understand the position of quarterback, give the quarterback the chance to and the help that he needs, and then also recognizing that every week you need innovative play calling, and you need all of that kind of coming together. So I hope for Keaton that he has that. I think we have the coach, we have the offensive philosophy. I think we'll have the offensive line. We've got weapons, and so for him, go play the position. And everyone plays it a little bit differently, but in the end, can I get the ball out of my hand efficiently and effectively, and I'm not making stupid mistakes, and I'm not causing too much grief, and then I can grow from there. I can learn as I get experience. And it's the guys that you can sense that every play matters, every mistake I don't want to see ever again. Everything I'm doing, I'm trying to get a little bit better every time I throw the ball. And so that's the spirit of it. And nobody, Jim McMahon, Mark Wilson, myself, nobody was great. We all grew. We all matured, but we did it quickly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, so Keaton, it's like, get in, play some ball, make some mistakes. We don't want to see him again, and get good fast. That's just how we do it.
Get good fast.
That's great. You just need to get good fast. That's great advice.
But that's. I think that's the position today in the world. Like quarterback in the NFL today, quarterback in college is get trained, get some good help, get someone to call some great plays, be innovative, and now get good fast.
Yep.
And guys that have the mentality to do that can do it. And I mean Zach got good fast.
Yeah,
Zach got good really fast.
Yeah.
Jalen got good really fast.
I'm going to take you back. I want to take you back, Steve. I was there with you. We were back together in Georgia in 1982, September 82. We're playing Herschel.
That was not good.
Well, but here's the thing. So your first start, it's against a P5 school. It's your first start against a P5. We're playing Herschel in number 6 Georgia in that stadium where they were calling us dog meat, all in unison, all 88,000 of them. Right, quite the environment. And we lost. We lost 17-14. Then the following week, BYU got beat at home against Air Force in the opening expanded LaVell Edwards Stadium. But then something changed. And you and all of us, something changed because we won 18 of the next 21 games and really went on a run for a couple of years that was unprecedented in college football. What was it that changed? What changed about you, and what did you learn from those first couple of games, and what changed about the team?
I had to. You talk about getting good fast. Like I had to learn. I mean, Jim McMahon had 76 NCAA records. I mean, I remember those. I mean,
oh my goodness, we'd watch film, right? So you'd be like, my goodness, he's a magician.
Oh my gosh! And he was, and technically, I mean, Jim was a nutty guy, but he technically, and I've told Jim to his dad and everybody, I learned to play the position the way I play it by watching Jim McMahon. He was technically a perfect drop, set, throw quarterback, and he could read defenses, and I learned that from him. And so I was ready to do it, but I was somebody that I needed to get my feet under me and get a sense of like. I remember I left the Georgia game, and I was like, I threw 6 interceptions. When was the last time you had a BYU quarterback throw 6 interceptions?
Ty threw like that many in his opener, didn't he? Something.
Maybe half that in the second half. But 6 is pretty standalone.
Oh my gosh! And so and I remember at halftime I'd thrown 4, I want to say, and Lavelle's like, he came up to me and kind of tried to calm me down. He's like, hey, are you okay? And is everything like, you got to settle down? And I turned to him, I was like, I'm great. Because I felt like, no, I'm figuring it out. Like it won't stay like this. It'll be fine. And I remember, like, I turned back to Lavelle. I was like, we're gonna be fine. He tells the stories like, when I came back at him like that, he wanted to say, well, you're not fine. You're terrible. I'm trying to pump you up, and you're not feeling the gravity of the situation right here. You've thrown 4 interceptions in the first half in Georgia. We got a problem. And I was like, don't you see the problem? And I saw only solutions. So maybe that was it. I knew that I had a sense that I could really do something special. I felt like if I just keep doing it. And so I had to get it together fast, because we'd lost. You can't replace Jim McMahon and lose. You can't throw an interception. You can't throw a bad pass. I mean, everyone saw him and remembered him as perfection. And so I loved the idea that I had to be perfect. I knew I couldn't be, but that's just the expectation. Just took me to the level where it never felt like, oh, that's enough. It was like always more. And for me, that was what I needed. I needed to always feel like you're doing great, but there's more. There's more. And I love that.
You got good fast. You did. You
well,
got
good
fast.
And Steve, you may have heard me say,
Get good fast or you're out.
Yeah, I've said this over and over again.
Let me say this. You got to get good fast, or it's Pleasant Grove, American Fork, Draper. Like, you're out of town. Like, get out of here. Get going.
I've said to people many times, publicly, I'm just like, Steve's one of the greatest players in the history of the game. And I said, I had a front row seat to watch him go from here to here. And I don't know if you can see me on the screen, but I said it was just remarkable, because it's like he got better with every snap. He got better with every quarter, with every game, and it never stopped. And it felt like it never stopped even in the National Football League. When you were an MVP, it just felt like you were still grinding and trying to get better every play and every quarter and every game. I never saw you stop working at your craft and getting better. It was just remarkable to me that you were never satisfied, and so you just kept getting better until you retired as one of the greatest of all time. How do you teach a kid to have that mentality? Because that's the magic sauce right there, Steve, and you had it.
Well, have him replace Jim McMahon.
That helps.
And then have him replace Joe Montana. And then, then get on your horse and start riding. Like, I loved, it was brutally hard, but I knew there wasn't, I guess for me, I had the ability to run. And once I learned to throw the football, thanks to Jim, I could throw it anywhere. I felt like I had this new talent when I went to college, and I didn't know how to throw the football properly when I got to BYU, but I watched Jim, and I was like, oh. And once I felt that, I know all of a sudden it was as if I had a talent I never knew about. I could throw the ball anywhere, at any time, at any position. It's like all of a sudden, and so to me, it was all about just getting more opportunity to throw it. And then because I could run around, I could extend it and make people pay. I could, you want to drop 8, and I'll just run for 15. And so the next play, I'll throw it right by you. And so I I loved being able to put that kind of pressure on defenses. And then because I had help and because I had an innovative offense and a great coach, off we went. And I had that. I never stopped that. I went to the USFL and I had Sid Gilman was my coach, the great Sid Gilman, one of the greatest fathers of the forward pass.
Yes.
He was like 80 years old. He was like at the end of his career. Gave me some of the greatest wisdom ever about how to throw the football and where to go and how to, and he encouraged me. He loved the fact that I could run around. He didn't worry about that I was lefty. And then I had Mike Holmgren again and Bill Walsh and Mike Shanahan and Steve. I mean, I had all these phenomenal coaches that just propelled me forward. And because I could threaten, the game in ways that no one else could. It was just so much fun to be able to read defenses and throw it and dissect them. And then the one or two times that they would get to us, I could make them pay again. And so to me, Blaine, I was just trying to get the full measure of myself. Like I kept going because there was just more to do. There was more to get. There was more to become. And I was given the chance in the NFL. So many guys, go through so many names that I know that got to these terrible places for quarterbacks and spent their whole career just in terrible situations. I found my way to San Francisco, and I found my way to a place where they were 3 generations ahead of everybody else offensively. And I had to sit around a little bit, which was a bummer. But, I knew that once I got there that, it was an amazing opportunity. So I think more than anything, you're right. I did constantly get better because I had the ability and I was given the platform to do it. And then I had the ability to just continue to threaten defenses. The game today is my game. All the great players today are guys that play just like I did. And the game has changed in such a dramatic way because of how they've limited defenses. But the dual threat quarterback is going to be the future of the sport forever because of the rules. They're not going to try to make it more dangerous. And so because of that, and so to me, I love that football that I played is now kind of ruling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because how many times I had, not in San Francisco and not when I was at the LA Express or not when I was at BYU, but a lot of places people would say, we don't like scramblers. We don't like it. And it's like, how about a scrambler who's has the best passer rating in the NFL who can run? How about that?
They just didn't get it.
You don't like scramblers, but how about the most efficient passer in the game who can run? How about that one for you? And I always loved them trying to tell me, well, you can't have a running quarterback. Like, well, how about a quarterback that can completes 80% of the passes and can run? And so it's like there's an and to this, not an or. And that's what I love with the game today is that Patrick Mahomes is an and guy.
Yes.
Right? It's like I can be the most efficient thrower of the football in the game and I can still beat you with my legs. I love that.
Yes.
Steve Young is on the Wise Guys tonight. Vai Sikahema is going to join us in just a second. It's his birthday. He's got a couple of things he'd like to tell you. But before we get to Vi, and then we'll let you get on with your night. Last August, when Marie Osmond was here as a guest with Robbie Bosco, we asked you to submit some questions. You know what's coming. We asked you to submit questions for Marie to ask Robbie, and she did a great job. When she wasn't laughing, she was able to deliver that. Well, tonight, Robbie has sent us a few questions for us to ask you.
He was going to come up, Steve, but Mr. Bishop Robbie Bosco
got
tied up in
and
interviews.
You know what? I say this. If you're going to have Robbie ask me a question, he has to be in person. Look me in the eye with these questions.
Here's number one.
I have a feeling I'm going to want him to have looked me in the eye.
I agree with it. I agree. Like, I'm going to let Dave do him because I'm not even condoning this.
Number
so
one,
Dave can do it.
From Robbie. After your concussion in the 1983 game against Utah State, your backup, Robbie Bosco, came in and led the team to a score and seemed to have everything under control. Why do you feel it necessary to come back in on the very next series?
Because Robbie didn't have it under control. He only acted like it was. He only went 5 for 5 and a touchdown. But I sensed that there was some confusion in the air, and I needed to get back on the field before Robbie took my job.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? I can feel for Robbie because we're playing Ohio State in '82 in the bowl game, and they're roughing us up a little bit, and Steve gets like the hardest hit I've ever seen a quarterback ever in.
Oh, yeah,
remember
that
that
was
hit?
He broke my helmet.
Yeah. Was that Marcus Merrick and Trevor? I can't.
Broke my helmet.
Yeah.
I turned back, and a guy hit me. I agree with it. It's the hardest I've ever been hit in my life.
I never saw anything like it. I thought Steve might be out forever, let alone for the rest of the game.
We were sitting in the stands. We thought you were dead.
So Mike looks at me, Holmgren looks at me and says, "Go, you're in. Let's go." Well, don't worry, I'll call stuff for you. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, we're getting killed out here. So I go in, and a couple plays later, Steve comes running back in. and I come out, and Holmgren says to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Steve's in." He goes, "Steve who?" I said, "Steve Young." He goes, "Steve Young is not back in. Did you see the hit?" I'm going to know he's back in. He just sent me out. He's back in. Mike's like, "Well, this will be interesting." No, Steve came back in. And Steve always feels the need to come back in.
Here's question number 2. Question number 2 from Robbie Bosco. Steve, why did you quit taking me golfing after signing such a huge contract the summer we were hanging out? That's inside baseball because I don't know what he's talking about, but apparently it's still bugging him.
Well, there was not like he's trying to create division. You know, I'm about love, and I'm not going to go this way. I'm not going to go into this divisive conversation with Robbie that he was, the little brother that just, was like wouldn't let go of my pant leg. I'm not going to give that image of this little kid that just wouldn't let me go because all of us big boys are. No, he's I think more than anything golfing with Robbie, and I will say this, Robbie's a really good golfer, and I've had very much jealousy because he makes golf look really easy, and golf has always been really hard for me. So that's probably why I left him behind, because he was making me look bad.
Yeah, Robbie's a phenomenal player.
Thank you for that, Robbie's questions. And hey, Steve, we're going to bring in Vai Sikahema on his birthday. Elder Sikahema right there. Steve, do you have any advice for Elder Sikahema as he moves forward?
It's your P day, bro. You don't have to wear
Why has he got a white shirt on?
Bro, you're okay. It's okay.
Steve, these are my pajamas. I sleep in a white shirt. I take the tie off when I go to sleep, but I keep the white shirt.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, look at him right there. Hey, I can't tell you. This guy had more life, more stories, more you talk about a healer. He was a guy that could be tension and he could break it with a great story, a great joke. Nothing ever brought him down. Vi, and he was one of the guys our freshman year. We had a lot of guys our freshman year. And he was one of the guys.
Steve,
he was one of the guys that played right away. There's a lot. This is a tough team to break into. There was a lot of great players, and Vi showed up as a freshman, and they put him right out there. Took me to get out there.
It was like Steve. It was like gladiator school our freshman year.
Yeah.
It was like gladiator school. It was like the toughest, baddest dudes were going to survive, and frankly, Steve, we weren't sure what to make of Steve because he was it was clear he was an intellect, so that made him different from the rest of us knuckleheads who were there. But Steve had just enormous athletic talent. And that was clear. I remember one night we were walking from the Cannon Center after a meal. We were walking up to the library. I don't know why I was going to the library. You were at the library all the time.
There was a girl up there you were going to meet.
I guarantee it. I guarantee that too.
But I remember Steve just lamenting the fact that he had made a serious mistake. And I remember the school that you were talking about. Steve had wanted to go to. He felt like he should have gone to North Carolina. Was that one of the schools, Steve, that recruited you hard?
Great memory. That tells you that you know the story, because I was a freshman. I show up and this is a great, the story. I'm 8th string on the depth chart. 8th string on the depth chart. You know what that means? I'm running the plays of Wyoming and Utah, and Kyle Whittingham's killing me, trying to, the defense doesn't. They're too stupid to know that I'm just a BYU quarterback acting like the Utah quarterback, and so I was getting killed. And I remember talking to Vi. I was down as I've ever been, and I said, Vi, I could have been starting at North Carolina right now, and they don't even know my name here. I don't even know what I'm doing here. And I was like, that's when I called my dad. I said, Dad, I'm coming home. And my dad said, I live with quitters, bro. So that was it. That was Vi. I can't believe that was you that I was complaining to coming out of the Cannon Center.
Did Vi give you any advice? What did Vi tell you on that big night?
Vi's like, I don't know your name either, bro.
Hey, I wanted to know if I could go with them. Let's go. Hey, if they had the transfer portal back then, Steve and I would have left that first semester. We just felt so out of place. I had committed to go to Arizona State because I was a running back. I wanted to go to Arizona State, but Frank Cush got fired the month before the signing date. And I called Lavelle and I said, is there still a scholarship left? And he said, we'll make some changes, but you need to sign and come. We need to know this week. If you're not coming, then the scholarship's going somewhere else. And I ended up going to BYU under those terms. But we had, honestly, that freshman class, think about this, 3 number 1 draft picks, Steve Young, Gordon Hudson, and Todd Shell. That's Alabama-like in 2022. We had 3 number 1 draft picks come out of our class, and Lee Johnson was in our class. He played 19, 20 years in the NFL.
He played more times than most anyone has ever played. Jim Herman was a pro for a while. You played pro for forever.
Bruce Hansen played
for a while.
Wayman
Adam played for years.
Adam. I mean, we had some horses on that, but we didn't really know it until probably. I think maybe we had some sense our freshman year that we were a pretty good class, but we didn't have anything to compare it to. But we just knew that it was. Hey, by the way, Steve always loves to tell the story of that he was 8th on the depth chart. Now I'm going to put Steve on the.
I'm trying to think of the 8 quarterbacks because I was there the next year. I don't remember we had 8. Jim
Right,
Kimball, Eric Krasmarzik.
No. Royce Bybee.
Okay, Royce.
Jim Kimball, Eric Krasmarzik, Mark Halgo.
Oh yeah, I forgot Mark.
How many is that? 5, 6?
Well, you didn't say Jim because obviously Jim was there.
We got.
There was a guy from California named Mike. He had a mustache.
Mike.
Was it Wilson?
Not Will. It was Mike.
You know what I'm talking about.
The mustache. He had the mustache.
Yeah, he had the mustache.
And then Jim and Mark and Eric and.
We're missing somebody, but that's 7 right there.
Royce.
Everybody was on scholarship.
Yeah, I was 8th string. There was and then I remember. Do you remember Eddie Reed? You were in varsity right away, Vi. I mean, Vi went right up. Vi was like, oh, he's a superstar. The rest of us played JV. We had to go down to UNLV on the AstroTurf on 130 degrees. The shoes, my Nikes,
I believe
melted. They melted.
It.
And we ran the wishbone because we'd been playing the wishbone for the Wyoming game. And Andy Reid's like, Steve, you run the wishbone so well. We're going to go down. And so now I'm trying to play for BYU, and I'm running the freaking Wyoming wishbone for BYU. And we go down to the game, and Andy Reid, it's my turn to start because Mark Halgo and Jim Kimmel and I we traded starts in the JVs. And Mark Halgo's dad came down to the game, traveled from Minnesota. And so Andy Reid walks into the locker room before the game, goes, hey, Steve, Mark Halgo's dad has flown in from Minnesota. So do you mind if he starts today? Because his dad's here. I'm like, oh, yeah. Mark Halgo's dad can come next week to Air Force, bro. Because this is my shot. Andy Reid's trying to take my shot away.
Oh my goodness.
I got a question for both of you. Who's most surprised? Steve, that Vi is a general authority of the church, or Vi that Steve's writing books about love?
Both pretty surprising. I think we both. You know what? In our group of guys, there was a vicious faith. You know what I mean? It was like we were guys that had been from a long ways away. Like Vi came from a long ways away. Jim Herman came from places away. I came from places away. There's a lot of I say vicious faith when I'm saying it's been tested. Like it wasn't we didn't have to go show it all. We've been through it a little bit. And so I think there was a sense that no matter what, I tell you what I never wondered is the both of us be here today kind of with pretty strong faith still. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
I agree with that.
Hey,
I mean, seriously, if you just go back, that 1980 group, If you would have said, hey, two guys out of that class, one's going to be a Hall of Fame in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the other one's going to be a general authority, nobody would have picked the two of us.
Who would they have picked?
Yeah, like pick the guys. That's what I want to know. Who
Well, I don't
know.
that'd be a hard one because maybe I ended up would have picked this, Vai. Maybe we just don't realize that.
Hey, you know what? You know why it would have been hard to pick? It's because guys like Wayman Hamilton,
right,
who was about as crazy. He didn't want to come to BYU. He was recruited by USC, Oklahoma, all the big schools, and
right. That's right.
He hated BYU. He hated Provo, but he came because his mother joined the church when we were seniors, and he came here because his mother committed him to come to BYU, and that guy he's been in like 3 bishoprics now. I think he's on his 4th bishopric, YSA bishopric in Provo. That may be an even bigger reach, Steve. If you knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, right? If
yes.
you knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, that's an even bigger reach.
Yeah.
But it speaks of how far we've all come in the 40 years past. I mean, I'm just so proud of everybody.
Yeah, you guys have been great.
What a good time. I mean, you talk about the heyday. Lavelle Edwards in his heyday. That's not a heyday. I mean, the team had just been expanded. Expectations that we would be undefeated and every year, and some good times. Wow, so many good times, so many fun times. And Vai, we really were all friends. We got along. We had a great time and a lot of good times. With Lee Johnson and Scott Robinson and these guys.
Scotty. So I have a question for you guys because I get asked this all the time, right? And I was back there with you guys, didn't come till the next year in '81, but then I've been part of this for all of these years. And everybody always asks me, what's the greatest team of all time at BYU? And so, Vi and I were part of that '84 team. I always have to mention that. But my next one, I'm always like, the '83 team from a talent perspective, that one that Steve quarterbacked, and we went down and lost that opener at Baylor, but then came back and just didn't lose. And then it became like I never thought we were ever going to lose a football game again. After we got rolling in '83 and into '84 and into '85. The 96ers all say, well, what about us, right? And then Jim always says, Blaine, are you discounting? Jimmy Mack always like, Blaine, are you discounting 1980? Like, come on, that team was crazy good. So it always comes down to 80, 83, 84, and 96. What do you guys think? What's your vote on that?
Well, I watched 80 painfully because I had to sit from I remember Brian Hazelgren, because I didn't get to go on the travel squad as a freshman. I was up in his cabin up in the outside of Heber, and we were listening on KSL, just sad, like 2 sad sacks, listening to, and just, they beat UTEP 75-0, and like they were just killing people. And so it's like, I'm not going to be part of the bar fight, which is like these dumb questions that you just asked, Blaine.
Come on.
I'm going to appreciate greatness. When I see great, it's like me, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady in the last 20 years. It's like, can we not appreciate the greatness and then just kind of like accept it? Or do we need to pick one? And then I say to myself, okay, if you put a gun to my head, of course it's 83. But anyway, I'm not going to.
Vi, here's a question that I want to ask you about Steve. So Steve was a football, baseball, and basketball star on the East Coast in high school. Danny Ainge was a star in the same sports on the West Coast. In a cage fight to settle who was the better athlete, who wins?
Ainge, wow, he was so good, man.
Ainge has the height and the reach.
Good. Yeah, he was good in other. Vi, don't answer that because I'm sitting here, because I think you'd probably say Danny, but I will tell you, Vi, I don't know if you remember, but I convinced Floyd Johnson, who was the equipment manager, because you could not that '80 basketball team with Fred Roberts and Runya and
Trumbo and what a team!
You couldn't get in. And so I told Floyd, if I cleaned up the towels in the visitors' locker room, can I sit? I sat on the visiting bench at the end of the bench, handing out towels my freshman year, so I could get a seat to see the great Danny Ainge play.
Wow.
Because he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable.
Vi, did you want to answer that, or are you just going to stay quiet?
No, you know what? I think the fact that I would only lean to Danny because he played professional sports in 2 sports.
That's right. Well, I would say this: he's a much better basketball player. I'm a better football player than him.
He didn't
it
throw
comes down to baseball.
You threw
he
a no-hitter.
Played pro baseball for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, but I don't think he threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, you
in
threw
high
a
school.
no-hitter in high school, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve threw a no-hitter in high
Yes,
school?
he did. Yes, he did.
New Canaan High School's never been the same since they
Never been the
faced
same. They never
Steve
recovered.
Young. Did you just have, what pitches did you throw? Did you have magic that day when you threw a no-hitter?
I had the high heater, the inside heater, and the outside heater.
I love it.
He was a lefty. Hey, I don't know if you guys. I'll tell you the real quick story. That I had a role in Steve going to San Francisco. I may have shared this with Blaine.
Yes, you told me, but I want you to tell this. Yeah.
And Steve will remember the story as it rolls out. Steve is, he's in Tampa, and my rookie year. We're playing. I think it may have been Steve's second year there after he left the USFL. But we're playing the last game of the season in St. Louis, and both teams are like 3-12 going into that last game. You remember this, Steve?
Yeah, you set an NFL record that day. I watched you because we were both whoever lost
was going to get the first pick.
Choice. And
Exactly.
so our team wouldn't. You returned like 4 punts for touchdowns. Nobody would tackle because they had to lose. And I set an NFL record that day. You're right. I forgot about that. Amazing that day.
I returned 2 punts for touchdowns in the second quarter, and we win 21-17. And Steve had, all Steve had was James Wilder, maybe probably one of the top 3 backs in the NFL.
Yes.
There was no one else on that team. So because we won, people in the organization were so mad that we won that game because they wanted the first pick.
They won it off of your kicks. I know where you're going. If you hadn't returned those kicks, we would have won, and then you would have the first pick, and I would have not gotten out of Tampa because they wouldn't have taken Vinny Testaverde because Ray Perkins hated lefties and hated southpaws, and I wouldn't have gotten to San Francisco. I do owe you my life. I owe you my life. I forgot about that. I do owe you everything. Oh, my gosh.
Steve and I have
my life. I forgot about that.
Secret. When Steve writes his next book, he'll include
Yes.
Vai Sikahema does return 2 punts for touchdowns. And Steve, here's what happened to me. It was the last game of the season, and the next day was a Monday. We voted on the Pro Bowl because of those 2 punt returns. I get to go to the Pro Bowl, and my agent had negotiated. They call them escalator clauses, and if you reach certain things, that they would tear up your contract. And one of them that he put in was if I go to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, they tear up my contract and would pay me whoever was making the most.
So we made you rich, and you made me.
You guys are best friends.
Look at how much did it for me.
All the way back.
I'm glad we were able in 2023.
But Vi told me this story before. I didn't realize that Steve didn't even know this story, Vi. I can't even believe Steve didn't know it.
I known it deep down.
He was
before,
there,
but
he knows the
put it all
story.
together because we had to lose to get that pick, and that we lost, and he made it happen. And I think the Cardinals were trying to lose too. Nobody. It was amazing. The line of scrimmagers, like no one really moved, and then kind of like fell down because
Nobody's covering punts.
Nobody had to. And Vi was the ones like, hey, you know what? Too bad. I'm going for the Pro Bowl.
Nobody was trying. Nobody was trying. But I'm the 53rd man on the roster, on the 53-man roster. I'm trying to get a job the next year. So I'm the only one going 110%.
That is awesome.
Hey, listen, our live stream's hopping tonight. Richard just joined us from Panama. We've got folks from all around the world.
We've got Japan in the house, Panama in the house, Australia in the house tonight. It's so cool that this is all over the world tonight.
So Steve, we're going to let you go here. We're going to hit you with 5 quick questions. We ask all our guests. We put Robbie through it. We put Marie through it. We're going to put Vi through it here in just a little bit.
He has the benefit of listening to your 5 questions, and you're not supposed to think about these. You just first thing that comes to your head. And so here we go. Your favorite sports movie?
Oh my gosh, favorite sports movie. Roy Hobbs.
The Natural?
The Natural.
With Robert Redford, yeah. Favorite singer or band? Vi's plugging his ears.
Yeah.
Oh, Vice singer or band. That changes through the years, of course.
Who's today?
Today.
I have to remind Steve that I don't remember what year it was, but he and I and Herm and Lee and Brenda and some girls.
Oh, yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire back in the day.
Yeah, we went to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and we also went to the Janet Jackson concert together.
Yeah, so we were like, there's some great stuff. But today's probably Young the Giant or I tell you what, there's some country music. I was never a really country fan, but I've become a real appreciator of some of the great,
Keith Urban. Or old school?
New.
Dan and Shay.
Newer. Come on.
Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks.
That's old, Vi. That's old.
Stay out of this, Vi. That's old.
Anyway, Young the Giant.
I have to say, 2 of my favorite singers that Steve will agree with. These are 2 of our favorite singers. Libby Fowler Lloyd, and Braden Young are 2 of our favorite singers, right? They definitely are, right, Steve? Steve's son, Braden, he just graduated from art school, right, Steve?
Yeah, so he's down in Utah. He's down at the Utah Shakespeare Festival all this summer.
That's right.
So
awesome.
We need to get down. Brendan and I need to get down and see him.
We're going to see him. We're going to see him on Thursday. So
awesome.
Great.
Yeah. So Braden, Manhattan School of Music, Manhattan School of Arts, just graduated. So phenomenal. Okay, favorite breakfast cereal?
I don't eat cereal anymore. So it used to be Captain Crunch, but
Dave's going to be so happy because that's his favorite.
Made my mouth bleed, so I encourage people not to
you got to let that sit in the milk for a few minutes, and then they won't bring blood out.
Yeah,
it's just
cereal. It's like cereal's out for me.
So I have to tell you. So we asked Danny Ainge this when he's on. Danny's like, shredded wheat. We're like, surely like frosted shredded wheat. He goes, no, like just the plain old ones, like the little hay bales.
He said it with a pause too.
And
he
we're
just
like,
said
what?
shredded wheat, and it was like dead air.
And then we found out that his wife makes him eat it since he's had heart problems, so that's not his favorite.
All right, number 4, Steve. Favorite stadium to play in?
If I could play today, it'd be on SoFi. That's an amazing stadium in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But I loved playing anywhere in San Diego or LA back in the day because the turf was amazing and the weather was always great. So those are my favorite stadiums.
All right.
And then the last one, favorite Lavelle Edwards memory.
We're at the Hula Bowl. He's the coach of this all-star game in the Hula Bowl. And so all these all-stars from all over the country are playing. That's Reggie White was there. There's some phenomenal players that were there, and he was the head coach. And he started the offensive meeting, and he's like, okay, guys, we're going to run, a few plays here. And he starts to get up to kind of draw them up. Classic Lavelle. He's like, Steve, you draw them up. I don't remember them all. Because Lavelle was an organizer, right? He was an inspiration. He was not the details weren't the thing that he was really focused on. And so he got up in the Hula Bowl to try to talk through everybody. He's like, 66, Steve, right, draw this up.
That's awesome.
Great Lavelle Edwards.
66, inside out away from Mike, right? That's the read.
Yeah, right?
That's the read. Inside out away from Mike. That's what we were supposed to do.
Steve, do you have any birthday wishes for Vi before you go?
Oh, Vi, happy birthday, man. That's amazing.
We've known each other since we were teenage kids, man. So we've been buddies for 40 plus years. So I'm proud of you, Steve.
I feel like I track him every time I see someone. Like I just saw Vi. He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
Wow.
So Steve, ever since he went on his mission to North Platte, Nebraska.
No, Hey, he dragged me back one summer, Steve, to do football camps all over North Dakota.
Oh, that was Floyd Johnson that was sending us out there.
Yeah. Well, you know what we did? To kill time, we sat on the front porch and watched the dog run away for like 9 hours because we could see it for 9 hours because we couldn't see anything else.
I'll tell you, my freshman year, there was not a meeting house in the state of Utah. You can't name a town that was smaller than we went down to speak at from Floyd Johnson assigned
yes.
fireside.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Edna, you just tell me some stuff. You're going to go to the Ward House and outside of Tooele. What was that little town?
But all that Floyd had us do, you guys, over those years, that's what shaped us. That's for sure, right? The great Floyd Johnson.
Much love to all you guys. This
Steve,
is amazing.
We kept you way longer than we said. I apologize for that, but I don't really because I loved having you on. We appreciate you. We love you, man.
Give Barb our best and see you soon.
Give Barb a big hug, and you guys be safe coming over.
Now the truth of who saved my career.
There you go.
Vai Sikahema.
That's it.
Tell you, from the position I now hold, I thank you, Steve, for all the good you've done to advance the work of the church. You are, and by the way, I was happy you came on until these guys broke the news that this is the day that Brigham Young died. It's my birthday, and I didn't know it was the day that Brigham Young died.
Thanks for that,
kind of a downer.
Listen, when we have one of the great Youngs on the show, the anniversary of that, it has to come out. That Young on the back of those jerseys has meant so much.
Vai Sikahema's birthday. That's all I know.
We'll just remember it as that. So thanks, Steve.
See you guys. Take care.
Great Steve Young on the Wise Guys tonight. You're going to want to listen to this podcast over and over again. It will be available in the morning, and we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And what a great hour. And that brings us to our official next guest. Is celebrating his birthday tonight. The former broadcaster, NFL punt returner, and the freshman who really won the 1980 Miracle Bowl because if it wasn't for his punt return for a touchdown, Jim McMahon's Hail Mary to Clay Brown would have meant jack squat. He's also a general authority for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Our pleasure to welcome national champion Elder Vai Sikahema to the Wise Guys.
You have to add to every introduction of him now, and the guy that saved Steve Young's career.
And the guy that saved Steve Young's career. It was fun. It was fun to hear his reaction to your story.
Right. See, it's been so long. It's been nearly 40 years since the incident happened, but I remember, after the game, we came up and shook my hand, and he was kind of down, but I think he was also happy that he knew he didn't know he was gonna head to San Francisco, but he knew that this was gonna be his ticket out, and he gave me a big hug on the field afterwards.
Well, it worked out for both of you. Hey, what'd your wife Kayla get you for your birthday?
She went and got me some barbecue from a little place around the corner here. Can I say it or
yeah,
not?
Absolutely. Hey, this is our podcast. We can say whatever we want.
I think it's called R&B Barbecue here in Salt Lake, and it was yummy, delicious.
Where's Kayla? Is she going to make an appearance on the show tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to walk into the living room right now.
So, and you were originally going to come down, and then Kayla nixed it because she said that it's your birthday and you had to stay up home. So as you get older, while you're walking in there, so everybody can meet Kayla, do the birthdays become a bigger deal to you, or are they less of a big deal to you?
It's not as big a deal. All right, she's giving me the.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Brenda said you didn't come down and just stay at the house and visit with her while Vi came in studio with us. I'll just tell her that. So.
She's watching in the other.
Okay. We love you, Kayla.
On the TV, so she knows.
We're just glad to have you on your birthday for a little bit. What's that 1984 championship meant to you over the years?
It's meant a lot, primarily because of the lessons learned from being a part of that great team, and not only the life lessons that we all learned, Blaine, just being a part of a team, teamwork, work ethic, learning to work together for a common goal, all those things. But also probably more than anything, the relationships. It's been 40 years, and we've only lost a handful of guys from that team. Craig Garrick is one of them.
Yeah.
That pops in
Kyle
mind.
Morrell, our guy Kyle Morrell.
That's right. Our two captains.
Danny Plater.
Yeah, Mark Allen. Yeah.
Danny Plater wasn't on that team.
No, he was a little early.
Mark Allen. Allen was one of our cornerbacks. But it's been the relationships. We see each other just like I heard you guys talking to Steve about this band of brothers and band of sisters. We really have it, and I think the connection that we have is strengthened by the fact that we attended a religious school. When I was back in Philadelphia, guys would say, there's a special bond. Everybody knows about it throughout the NFL about Notre Dame guys. And guys would tell me, but there's something different about you BYU guys. And they were saying that to me and Jim when I was with the Eagles, because Jim, when I came to the Eagles, Jim had a car dealership deal. I was nobody. Jim went to the car dealership and said, hey, I want you to get Vi a car. And they said, he's a punt returner. I don't care. Get him a car. and then he came to me and he said, hey, don't even bother shipping your cars from Arizona. I've got you taken care of. It's that kind of thing. And by the way, Jim left the next year, and I stayed, and I got the car dealer sweet deal that Jim set up. And every BYU guy that came along after, it didn't matter how big a star, how little a star, Ty Detmer, Morris Unutoa, Chad Lewis, they all got the car dealer.
You mean to tell me Reno Mahe got a car deal back there?
Reno Mahe got more than that. He got restaurant deals.
Reno took Vi and I one time on a drive around South Philly in the Chickies and Pete's van.
Chicky Mobile.
Yeah, we went around. And then we drove into the state championship football game in the van into the end of the stadium. And I'm like, are we going to get arrested for this? And like Reno was like, calm down. I'm Reno Mahe, and this is Vai Sikahema. And the police officers looked in and they're like, oh, Reno and Vi.
What's up, guys?
No problem. Pull right into the stadium. And we stood on the sideline and watched the state championship football game, parochial school state championship football game. Because it's Reno and Vi. Let them in. That's what the cops said. So you guys were ruling that place back in those days with Andy as the coach.
You got two knucklehead Tongans in the same place, in the same city that,
Yeah.
It's never good.
Hey, speaking of Tongans, you share a unique heritage with Kalani Sitake, BYU's current head coach, where you were the first Tongan to play in the NFL. And Kalani's the first Tongan to be a Division I head coach. That's a pretty cool thing that you guys have in common. What's impressed you the most about Kalani as the Cougars head coach?
Kalani's he's a connector. He's a connector, and he's very organized and just does a great. He connects with these kids. They're a generation younger than he is. Kalani's got to be in his mid-40s, I'm guessing. And he connects with these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids because he just knows them, and he knows their challenges, he knows their strengths, their weaknesses, the things that keep them up at night, and he knows how to help them. I told Kalani the day that they had the Big 12 press conference, and I read about it first, and then I went and looked it up on YouTube and saw it when he just got up and made a declarative statement. This is who we are. We are a church-based institution, and that institution is the Church of Jesus Christ. We believe in Jesus Christ. We honor him and we worship him, and that's who we are. And we're not going to and I told him afterwards, I saw him maybe a week or so later, I told him, I said, I love that you leaned into it. Lean into it. Don't turn from it. But, I'm speaking to the choir. I love that he stood up and declared to the Big 12 media that this is who we are, and this is who we're going to be. We're going to continue to be. And this is our mission, and we're not going to shy away from it. And part of that mission is to win games. That's what we're going to be here. That's what we're going to do. I love that.
I wrote an article about that in the Deseret News. We got a lot of play. A Division I head football coach talking about Jesus and his football team and the Big 12 in the same paragraph in a conference where, you know what? that's not that far out there. This is a unique Big 12 for BYU and its culture, it seems.
It is. You just think about the areas, where they're going to be playing games. Many of these areas, I'm in the Northeast area presidency, and some of these areas, West Virginia is in the Northeast area of the church. And what I'm fascinated by is just how religious people are. I raised my family in Philadelphia area, and maybe not so much there, but areas like Virginia, those areas, there's churches on every street corner. People just, when they wave at you, they say, God bless. They're God-fearing. They love the Lord. They read the Bible, and I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be great for us. We're there with other like-minded institutions, I think. Yeah. And I think it's going to be great.
Vai, you and I and Dave were out to lunch a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, I'm lucky. I have a coach on the staff that also happens to be a son of mine, right? And he was talking about, and I was sharing this with you guys, how Kalani had said to them, we will not apologize for who we are or the honor code or any of that in our recruiting. In fact, it should be a huge advantage to us because we're unique. And there are enough good players out there, and they don't all have to be members of our faith, that value those standards and an honor code and what we can give to them here and our religious folks. And so we're not going to brush it under the carpet. We're not going to make it seem like it's a small thing. We're going to lead with it, and we're going to use that as an advantage in our recruiting. And it's really started to pay off. What's your thought on Kalani, like taking that stand in recruiting and just leading with who they are?
This is how I see it, Blaine. This is reminiscent of, and we all three of us are too young to have remembered when this actually happened. But in the early 1970s, Lavelle Reuben Edwards decided that he would lean into keeping scholarships for his missionaries who went on missions and they would come back. And even at BYU, they hadn't done that. The coaches before Lavelle, Tommy Hutchpeth and others, if you left on a mission, you were done. You can come back, but they didn't hold a scholarship for you. And Lavelle decided, I'm going to hold scholarships for these guys. If they go serve the Lord, they deserve to have their scholarships here when they got back. And that was, and you know this because you probably had started thinking about BYU probably in the 70s at some point. And by then, schools were looking at us going, hey, wait a minute. This is a huge disadvantage for us because we're playing, 25-year-olds, and all of a sudden it was what had been a disadvantage for us had suddenly, for some schools, they were saying that it was a big advantage for us. And Lavelle just leaned into it. But Lavelle didn't do it for that reason to get an advantage. Lavelle did it because it was the right thing to do. It was the mission of the church. The prophet at the time, Spencer W. Kimball, had made a clarion call for every worthy young man to go serve a mission. And Lavelle just decided, I'm going to do the right thing. And the right thing turned out to be a great thing for BYU. And it's the same thing that I think, it's very similar to what Kalani is doing. Let's lean into this. The honor code may actually be a help because I think there's a bunch of kids out there who are not of our faith. And the kids like Tyler Algier. Yeah. Good example, right? Came to BYU. I think he walked on. He had a chance to go to some other places. But Kalani told me, he says he came here because of his values. And that's exactly, what he got. And we took advantage of an opportunity to get a kid like that. And I think there are other kids like that. And there's probably some on the team. I don't know the roster well enough. You guys are.
Hey, I'll maybe surprise everybody with this. I don't know if this is surprising, but Dave and I have had a couple of conversations with Keaton Slovis. Dave, you just sat down with Keaton again, but had a couple of really good conversations with Keaton about why he's at BYU right now, because there was a lot of schools with maybe bigger names at BYU that wanted Keaton to transfer from Pitt. And he said the two most important things to me were, first and foremost, culture. Where do I fit in? Where are there going to be people like-minded with me? Where am I going to be comfortable as a human being with who I am? And he felt like BYU checked that box in a huge way. And he even admitted that USC wasn't a great fit for him, even though he was breaking records and, Heisman Trophy candidate as a freshman and sophomore. BYU is a much better fit for him culturally. And then he said, I also want to be in a place where they run a pro-style offense. Steve talked about this previously with us, Steve Young, where I could learn from somebody that would be innovative and prepare me better for the National Football League. Those are the two reasons Keaton Slovis chose to come to BYU. And one of the biggest factors was culture over everything else. So Keaton, and now we're hearing from everybody, what a great leader. Oh, my goodness, he fits in so well. He fits in up on campus. He fits in so there you go. Keaton Slovis is this year's Tyler Algier.
Linda Murray on our live stream, Cody Epps.
Yep.
Be another one to fit in that.
Yep.
Aiden Robbins, another one to fit in that category for sure.
Yes.
Elder Vai Sikahema is on the Wise Guys tonight. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com. Please continue on our stream to let us know where you're watching from. During Vai's 4 years at BYU, 80, 81, 84, and 85, with a church mission in between, his BYU teams went 47-6.
Yikes.
47-6. I don't know what happened in the 6, but the 47's really, really good.
UTEP's in there. Neither of us are going to address that. We're not going to talk about that UTEP game.
Vai, tell us what? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about the UTEP game.
I said we weren't going to talk about it.
Floyd.
Now explain the UTEP game before you tell us why it happened. This is undefeated. You've won the national championship. You opened the 85 season in El Paso.
We're a top 10 team again. We probably should have won the national championship again in 85.
They dropped 9, and a stubborn Norm Chow won't put Blaine in the game. Okay, now Vi, go ahead.
We go there. And I don't know what happened, but they ran all over us that night. They had a running back that must have had 300 yards rushing. But what I remember about that game is that Floyd Johnson had me stay that night and speak at UTEP Institute on Sunday afternoon. Sunday
wow.
The next day?
And then the next day. So we were counting on a win, and I would go there and kind of puff my chest out. Instead, I show up to I stayed at I think we stayed at a Holiday Inn, and the team flew back. I went back to the hotel and stayed. I think somebody from the sports information stayed with me and was there with me, and we flew back together Sunday evening. But it was like parties. It was like Times Square on New Year's Eve. I mean, cars honking all night. And then I had to go to the Institute, the next day to go speak to them. And everybody wore UTEP shirts.
Oh, nice.
At the Institute fireside.
It was such a shocking loss for all of us, right? Because, first of all, we were in a mode at that time where we never thought we'd lose football games, ever. Like, that would be that wasn't even thinkable that we would lose. UTEP was one of the worst programs in the United States. It was one of the top 5 most shocking upsets in the decade when we lost to them.
It was so shocking that Brent Musburger reported it on the NFL Today the next morning.
Yeah.
I remember watching it as a kid going, hey, we made the NFL Today.
That's why we weren't going to talk about it, and now we talked about it.
Now we have talked about it.
But we had a lot of good... We had a lot of good memories, right, Vi?
I don't know that it was Michigan App State, but it was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close.
I tell you, we had a lot more good than that bad. So six losses in Vi's time? Oh, my goodness. That's impressive.
Vi, I want you to reach back into your expertise to answer this next question on the art of the return. How does a kid return a punt for positive yards, even for a touchdown? And BYU's guys can listen to this and learn from the master. But what is the art of a punt return?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is this, and you guys will appreciate this because you know my background. I grew up boxing. My dad was training me in his master plan in our immigration that we'd make our living with me boxing. That's all he knew. My dad was not educated, neither was my mother. But so I started training, and I was fighting since I was 7 years old when I arrived, and all the way up until I started high school. The reason why there's a connection there is that if you think about it, making somebody miss in boxing is, bobbing and weaving and head fakes. And it's that. It's not jumping out of the way. It's head movement. And it's when I started playing football, I realized that it's the exact same thing that you do when you have the ball in your hands in open field. You're not jumping. It's a shake. It's head movement. It's how you make people miss. And I became really good at it. I've never forgotten this. Blaine and I spent a lot of time, commiserating because, we're both backups. And I actually went in and told Lavelle that I wanted to quit. And he said to me, I never forget this. He said to me, that'd be the worst mistake in your life. And I'll tell you why. You don't know this, but you're going to play on Sundays. And I said, Coach, I'm not even playing on Saturdays. Who thinks they're going to play on Sundays if they're not playing on Saturdays? And he said, well, you have a very unique skill set, and we don't value it as much here in college football, but at the next level. He says, I'm telling you something that I know a lot about because scouts come in here all the time, and they always ask about you because in the NFL level, a 10-yard return makes a difference in how they call plays and how drives go. I just completely disregarded it. But I was, the other thing that made me really good as a punt returner is that it wasn't that I was I'm fearless. There's not a lot that I'm scared of because I was a boxer, right? One of the first things my dad taught me, which is counterintuitive, when somebody throws a punch, rather than Ali was great at it, but he was tall, he would lean away from it and the punches would be short. My dad taught me, look, you're short and stocky. You're going to have to lean. Every time somebody punches, it's counterintuitive, but you got to lean into it and duck while you lean towards a punch. So my point is, I was never fearful on the field. And when the other thing that happened that worked for me is that I wasn't playing on the offense. So every time they punted or kicked the ball, I felt like it was a carry. So I'd be curious to look up BYU stats from the 80s. I bet you I had 5 fair catches in the 4 years that I was at BYU.
Oh, you weren't fair catching the ball. That you weren't going to fair catch it.
I rarely fair caught the ball because I was trying to make a statement to Mike Holmgren and Norm Chow and Ted Tollner, and I didn't have to make it to Lavelle because Lavelle understood. But I was just so angry all the time that I wasn't playing, and I felt like I should have been playing. But Lavelle just kept, telling me, "Hey, listen, just relax. We're going to do you a favor." Turns out that they did me a huge favor. I got to the NFL, and guess what? I had fresh legs. I got to the NFL and had, I had been worn down from carrying the ball 20 times a game. And I played another decade in the league because of it. So
that 87-yard punt return in Giant Stadium changed your life. It changed your post-football life. It sent you into broadcasting. Rocky Balboa's got his statue. You should have one of yours because you became an icon in Philadelphia. So you get the touchdown. You're in the end zone. You approach the Giants goalpost. What inside you made you think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to box this goalpost.
Dave, I had been dabbling in television at that point, and I didn't know it, but I was 2 years away from retirement. But I knew it was getting close, and when I'd actually scored the touchdown running along the Giants sideline, so I had to jog back the width of the end zone to get back to our sideline. But when I was jogging back, for a split second, I saw in the corner of my eye the Giant goalpost, and it was blue, of course, and had the word Giants written on it, top to bottom. And something happened. When I was a kid, my dad and I trained in this old gym. Anybody that grew up in Mesa, Arizona knows Rendezvous Park, where the Oakland A's practiced. It was their field that they played on. Underneath the stadium was an old gym. It was a municipal run gym, and the the heavy bag that was in that gym was the exact color blue. It was like the royal blue, BYU blue. And it looked like the bag looked like the goalpost padding. And I knew enough about television because I'd been dabbling in it that the cameras weren't going to cut the commercial because I just scored.
Right.
And they were probably going to zoom in the cameras on me. So I jogged over there, and knowing that my dad was home in Mesa, Arizona, watching, I dropped the ball and just went over there and just in my head I was thinking, Dad would really appreciate this because he had trained me to be a fighter. Instead, we found football. And I just started digging lefts and rights and uppercuts and the stadium. I was showered. Blaine knows because he's from New York.
Oh yeah.
They were throwing stuff.
The Giants hate the Eagles already, right?
But when we got on the team train to head back to Philadelphia, the head coach Richie Kotite came up to me and he said, Richie Kotite was hilarious. He came up to me and he said, "Hey kid." He's from Long Island. "Hey, kid, you understand what just happened to you tonight, right?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" He goes, "You're a made man in Philly."
A made man in Philly.
You're a made man in Philly. You'll never buy another drink or another cigar or dinner in Philadelphia.
Was he right? Now, you didn't do the cigars or the drinks, but was he right? Your fandom took off.
It helped me get a TV job.
Yeah.
Say, hey,
keep it.
I want to tell you guys, did it help him? Like Vi, and I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the Jose Canseco thing in a minute, but it was after the Jose Canseco thing. I was back, Brendan and I and the kids were back staying with Vi and Keala, and Andy was the coach with the Eagles. Reno was still playing. Chad was still playing. And Vi's friend, Bernard, was it Bernard that was fighting? I think Bernard was in a fight. Bernard Hopkins was in a fight.
Hopkins?
Yeah. But Vi is too cheap to get HBO, and the fight was on HBO. So we needed to drive over to the other side of Philly to go watch it on a friend's TV, right? I don't know if I even remembers this story, but so we leave their house out in Mount Laurel, and we drive through the town, and we come. I think we might have gone by the station to pick something up, and we're going out to his friend's house to watch the boxing match because Vi doesn't have cable. So we got to go to somebody else's house to have cable. And we couldn't buy the fight because Vi doesn't have cable. So we're driving, and I come up to a red light, and I turn my turn signal on, and I stop, and I turn right. And just as I'm doing that, we hear like, woo, and we get pulled over. And Vi's like, oh, man, you can't turn right on red at that corner. I'm like, was there a sign? Like, I didn't see the sign. And we were in my rental car, and Vi's sitting in the passenger seat, and the police officer comes over. He comes up to the window, and he says, hey, I need your license and registration, please. And I go, well, it's a rental car. And then Vi leans forward and says, hey, officer, this is my fault. I apologize. I'm from here. I knew that you couldn't turn right on red. This is my friend. He's from out in Utah. This is a rental car. He didn't know that he couldn't turn there, and I didn't tell him, and we're terribly sorry. And the officer kind of puts his head in my window. He goes, Vai Sikahema, is that you, Vi? And Vi's like, yeah, it's nice to meet you, officer. Like, and the guy reaches right across me as if I don't exist, puts his arm right across my face and shakes Vi's hand. He goes, it is like an honor and a pleasure to meet you, Vi. What are you guys doing in this neighborhood? And Vi's like, well, we're going over to a friend's house. You know, Bernard Hopkins is fighting. And he goes like, well, let me give you guys an escort out of this neighborhood. Like, you shouldn't be in this neighborhood. And don't let this hurt your day. And I'm so excited that I met you. He had Vi sign something.
Nice.
And I got no ticket. And I got a police escort out of that neighborhood because I was
power.
with Vi Sikahema. So when you punch a goalpost
Things change.
in Giant Stadium, everything changed in your life, and you become an icon in Philadelphia. That's just one example of my time with Vai Sikahema in Philadelphia.
And Vi's TV career is what brought us together, as our respective TV stations sent us to the Sochi Olympics in 2014, and we spent 25 great days hanging out together, and we had church services with the KGB looking through the glass. That was a first for the 4 or 5 of us, but that brought us together, and Vai Sikahema, now a 2-time Pro Bowl kick returner, with us on the Wise Guys. Vi, you were called as a general authority of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in April of 2021. So for those on the live stream and will listen to this podcast, and follow us that don't know, what does a general authority do?
We general authorities, 70, our main objective is to do the job, help the 12 in their service. In section 107 of the Doctrine and Covenants points that out, that the 12 are to call on the 70 and no other, as it were. So there's only going to be 12 of them, but the 70 is structured so that it could expand. But even as the general authorities, I think there's roughly 100 of us, maybe 104, 105. I don't have the exact number, but they've also added area 70s. That position has been around in various forms for the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years. And there's probably 350 of them. And their number will continue to grow as the church grows. So we, we're out teaching and proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. We just got back last week. We were in Washington, D.C. the weekend before. And then all of last week I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my wife on a mission tour. So if you're listening and you have a son or a daughter serving in the Pittsburgh mission, I want you to know that they're doing well. We travel about 3 weekends out of the month, and traveling to state conferences, reorganizations of stakes, or just visiting stakes. We go to priesthood leadership conferences with a member of the 12. For us, usually it's Elder Quentin Cook of the 12, or other members of the Council of the 12. We accompany them and help and teach and do everything that we can to strengthen the church and grow the kingdom.
So how in all those years of competitive sports did that prepare you for this stage of your life? What did sports do for you?
That's a good question, Dave. Because nobody signs up for these callings, right? Any more than bishops do or stake presidents do, but most certainly not these callings, because they're full time, and they're full time for depending on your age. I was called when I was 58 3 years ago. And they go until you're age 70. They release you emeritus when you reach the age of 70. One of the things but we all feel this way. No matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, and you know many of the backgrounds of the senior leaders of the church. They're incredibly smart, very bright. Many of them led universities as presidents. They were titans of industry, judges, lawyers, CEOs, CFOs, you name it. And here I am, a former NFL player and worked in television, and I didn't graduate from college until, I was age 40. Because I was a complete knucklehead in college, as Blaine well knows. So you wonder, my gosh, I'm here with these men who are just, one guy is smarter than the next. They're all, but I realized over time that that's, the Lord doesn't call those men either because they went to Yale or Harvard or Wharton. He calls them because they have something that they can add that will help build the kingdom. And I think maybe, I have some gifts. I know I have gifts. There's things that I can do that other people find a struggle with. I can connect, and I don't know if it's because I think part of to go back to your question, how did my experience as an athlete prepare me for this calling, Dave? That's such a great question, because I think because I played football, people always want to know us, right? They always wanted to be around us and hear about what happens with the team. And so I connected easily. Blaine and I are the same person, except he's white and I'm brown. We connect easily with people because we can talk and visit, and we enjoy people's company. You're basically the same way too, Dave. I think by nature, people think that I'm an extrovert, and I am. But I've had to be an athlete.
Yeah. Because
everywhere you go, people stop you, and I think that's one of the things that has helped my ministry, is that I connect people. I connect with people easily, and in doing so, I learned this when I was a young bishop, and then I was a stake president back east. Just connecting to people isn't enough. I've connected to people, and then turn them towards the Savior, lead them towards the Savior, and I think all those things help prepare me for the calling that I have.
Yeah, great answer. Do you think Vi is ready for 5 questions?
Yeah. You ready for 5? Yours aren't exactly the same as Steve's, by the way.
We mixed them up a little. Yeah.
Then I got one then Dave's going to ask you one additional question.
There's a bonus question.
I told Dave a story, and he's like, oh my gosh, listen, we need to ask Vi about this.
Can I just say this before you start the 5 questions?
Yeah.
People ought to know that the 3 of us get together and we have lunch periodically.
Yes,
and
we
just
do.
Get together just to do this. I thought it was brilliant that you guys decided to do something. You're probably going to monetize it because this is what we do when we get together. We go sit at lunch, usually at your country club, and we sit and tell stories and laugh. And the lunches are usually like, what, 4?
The last one was like 5. Brenda said to me the last time, she's like, are you just coming back from the club? And I go, yeah. She goes, you were with Vi and Dave that whole time? I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's like almost 5 hours. Why didn't you have dinner while you were there?
They did bring the dinner menus.
And think about it. When Steve was on with us a little earlier, Vi, like when we get together with Steve, whoever we get together with, that band of brothers we talked about, we can just sit and reminisce for hours. That's the format of this show, which is really why this show is so fun.
Vi, we had dinner with Sherry Dew the other night, 3.5 hours.
Yeah, we sat with Sherry at Roost Chris for 3.5 hours. It was so fun.
So
Sherry Dew is one of my favorite people in the world, and she's been bugging me forever to write a book. And I'm not like Steve, where I can sit down and focus. And Steve's written 2 or 3 books, and I've never written one.
Well, you should.
It's time. Sherry can help you. She's the best. So,
all right, here we go.
Okay, this is 5 questions for Vi. Favorite sports movie? Some are the same. Favorite sports movie?
Rocky.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
There's a shock.
Favorite singer or band? Favorite singer or band? I think it's going to be old school for Vi. Favorite singer or band?
Yeah, I got an idea.
I haven't listened to new music since 1983, 84.
So you're going to go with Morris Day in the Time that you used to perform in the Star Palace.
That was me. That was Alvin Salima.
I know who it was.
I'm going to go with Lionel Richie.
Richie. That is old school. Saw him. We saw him at the Salt Palace or something years ago.
He's phenomenal.
If you hear him now, he's still the same.
He's pure still. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Favorite breakfast cereal is Honey Bunches of Oats.
Okay.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one. Favorite kick or punt returner of all time, other than yourself?
It's got to be my man Billy White Shoes.
Yes, Billy White Shoes Johnson.
I mean, the funky chicken dance is an all. I mean, come on.
Who hasn't done that on the side yard? Who hasn't done the Billy White Shoes Johnson celebration?
Who has to spike the ball behind your head?
Yes.
and then do the funky chicken
I'm so
dance.
glad you said Billy White Shoes. I didn't even think of him, but that he was part of my youth, right? Because I loved him.
Oh my gosh.
So
unbelievable.
Your favorite advice from Lavelle Edwards?
Favorite advice from Lavelle Edwards is, son, don't quit.
Yeah.
You're going to play on Sundays.
That was good advice. By the way, he talked. Mark was on the show with us, and at the end of the show, he's like, "Can I tell you guys something I've never told?"
Mark who?
Mark Wilson.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah. He says, "Can I tell you guys something that I've never told before?" And we're like, "Sure, it's just us, Mark.
It's just us.
It's just us." And I don't know how many 100,000 people are going to listen to this, but and then he told us about how he went in and quit, and Lavelle talked him out of it. After his junior year, he was quitting, and Lavelle talked him out of it. So you're not the only one.
He's a wise man.
I think Jim McMahon went in there and wanted to quit and transfer.
Yeah.
How many times?
Yeah. How many times? So this is a bonus question. I've used this saying with Dave so many times. And he's like the very first time I used it, Dave's like, "Where'd you get that saying?" I go, "That is Vai's saying. Vai taught me this saying." And so we use it all the time, and we credit you. We footnote you every time. And we want to know the origin of this saying. Because you've said to me, and you taught me to say this, if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3.
The origin is Jim McMahon.
So Jim used to say that?
That was, Jim had a bunch of sayings that he used to say. It's no secret Jim uses cannabis.
Yes, I don't think that's a secret to anybody.
One of his sayings was, "Man made alcohol, God made weed. I'm rolling the dice with the big guy." That was one of his famous things. But he used to always say, because Jim never paid for anything.
No, that's true.
Not clothes, not shoes, not golf clubs, not club fees, tea time, nothing.
Nothing.
He just, everything for Jim was free, and he always told me, he probably still calls.
He calls me kiddo.
Too.
He calls you kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 61 years old today, and he still calls me kid. But he always told me, if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3.
So I've been crediting you because Vai's the one that taught me that. I did not realize that Jim every time I see Jimmy Mack, he puts his arm around my neck and gives me a hug, and he always goes, "How you doing, kiddo?" He still calls me kiddo. He's still to this day. He used to, when I was a freshman, he'd come out from, his time was 7-on-7. Steve would go in, and he'd come over and he'd go, "Hey, kiddo, come over here. Let's talk about what you just saw when I was in there." And he would teach me. He was such a great mentor, but still calls me kiddo to this day. Still calls you kid, huh?
He calls everybody kid. I think maybe because he doesn't remember people's names.
That might be.
Yeah.
But Mac is he's one of a kind. When I'm around him, I think I told this story at Danny Plater's funeral. But my nickname for him is Bishop. I always call him Bishop McMahon, and he always cracks up. He laughs. He says, "No way, never." And I said, "Jim, listen to me. Someday you're going to join the church, and I'll come baptize you." And I always tell him, within 3 to 5 years after you're baptized, you're probably going to be a bishop.
What does he say?
He says, why do you think I'm going to be a bishop? And I said, I'll tell you why you're going to be a bishop. Because no one will ever come confess anything that you haven't done twice. So you'll be very empathetic to people.
Very empathetic.
And confess. And he just cracks up. So Jim's got a good heart. He's still crazy, but those are the stories, Blaine, as you know, and you too, Dave. Those are the stories that we can tell. There's a whole bunch of other stories.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
it's not
Glenn,
fit for broadcast. You guys will lose your license.
Glenn just hopped on our live stream, said good morning from the Philippines. Vai's an amazing man and boxer. Whether he's beating Jose Canseco in a charity bout in Atlantic City or punching the goalpost, he can throw it. So let's finish with this question, Vi. So when you and Blaine went door to door selling fire extinguishers as college kids, what was your part of the job? And why would I ever open my door and see the two of you trying to sell me a fire extinguisher and buy one?
Hey, we had this routine, and we went with they were called halon fire extinguishers, and there was a gas that would extinguish fires. And we had this routine where we took a pan, like one of Brenda's pans, cooking pans, and we took lighter fluid, to start barbecues, right? And a match, and we had do a little demonstration with these little canisters were, like the size of an aerosol can,
Right on my front door, right at my doorstep.
We do it on your carpet in your living room.
You're going to do this
We would
experiment.
come in, and by the way, this was the summer of '84, so we wore our BYU
yes, we did.
polos. And the moment they saw us, most people just, "Hey, come on in, we'll talk football." So we go in and we do our little demonstration. And get this, Blaine would do the talking and the demonstration. He would you pour the lighter fluid in the pan, strike a match and light it, and then spray it with the Halon fire extinguisher, and it was extinguished, right? And to make the point that it's safe, he would hand the pan to me and tell him what I would do with the pan.
So I would say it's non-toxic. It won't hurt your pets. It won't hurt your children.
How did he prove that?
And I would say, Vi, and I would hand it to him, and Vi would lick the pan to prove that it was non-toxic.
That's how you close the deal?
Now, it's only been 40 years, but I haven't suffered much from it.
So now, how many of these things did you guys sell
We actually
with
sold.
this demonstration?
We actually killed it.
We sold a truckload because we knocked on the door of a guy who was a member of the Cougar Club.
Yeah.
And he owned what were they?
Trailer parks all over.
Trailer parks all over Montana, Idaho, Utah. He owned trailer parks, and he needed to have one in every trailer park.
Yep.
In every one of his trailers, and we sold the entire.
We sold the whole summer's worth of an allotment that Vi and I had in like a couple weeks, and then you know what we did?
We bought.
Yes, we did. We went and bought scooters.
Twin scooters.
Yes, we did. Aero 80s, Honda Aero 80s, and Kayla and Vi and Brendan and I went on scooter dates all the time.
You earned all that money and bought scooters.
So, and here's the thing. Obviously, Halon is not toxic and all that because Vi licked I don't know how many pans before we ran into Brother Chamberlain, who bought all those from us.
How did Blaine get you to do that? Is that as part of the demonstration? Like, who came up with, and then you licked the pan? Who came up with that idea?
Because he's got a silver tongue. He can talk you into anything. This guy, he goes, look, let me do the talking, and because I'm the quarterback, and you just lick the pan. I said, all right, I guess I'll lick the pan. By the way, little known fact, it is against the rules at BYU since 1985 to ride scooters. It's called the Fowler Sikahema rule.
Yes.
When LaBelle saw us riding them, he said, "Hey, where'd you guys get those?" "Oh, we bought them." Because you can't ride those.
Nope, don't ride those.
As long as you're on football scholarship, you're not allowed to ride those. We didn't know that. So,
hey, let's just say this: the presentation was excellent. Vi did a tremendous job.
Fantastic.
We sold a truckload of fire extinguishers, enough that we went and paid cash for a Honda Aero 80 scooters, and had a great time that fall.
You guys were pioneers for Cirque du Soleil. That's all.
And we were both living in Wymount Terrace at the time. So
no, if we could have done this with bug spray and and solar panels, we would have.
We started
a long time ago.
Vi and I started the whole summer sales business at BYU.
Right? That's
we
impressive.
just didn't have the vision that Todd Peterson and Vivint and all those guys had when they got it going, because we were just way ahead of our time, and we didn't make that kind of money.
Brother, happy birthay.
I
Yes.
love you guys.
Happy birthday. We love you, and so fun to have you on. So fun to have Steve with all of us, and give Cal a big hug for us, and all of our love for sharing you with us on your birthday. We appreciate it very much.
Hey, which game are you
guys?
Which game are you coming?
Only you guys, no one else.
Which game are you coming down to?
I'm coming down this weekend because I'm everybody's off. We don't have any assignments, and I'm coming the Friday game before General Conference.
Cincinnati. Yeah.
Good.
Coming to that game. I hope I see you guys.
You bet.
We'll see you for sure. So
the great Vai Sikahema, Elder Sikahema, was so generous with his time on his birthday. Thanks, Vi.
Thanks,
we'll see you
Vi.
at lunch.
Love you guys.
Love you too. What a treat tonight.
yeah.
It's like our best show ever, and we've had some good shows.
Yes, that was so fun.
Let's just jump to our inspirational quote of the day, and we'll get you out.
We'll
We
get you
do
out
want
of
to say
here.
next week David Nixon's going to join us. We're efforting Austin Colley. The following week, John Beck will be here. Size up Keaton Slovis after a couple of games.
It'll be really fun to talk to John, how he thinks he's doing after 2 games.
And Dave Rose will be with us ahead of his induction into the Utah Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
That's going to be a great
the
show.
lineup, the hits just keep coming with the folks we have on the show, and yeah, what a great show tonight. We're so grateful for Steve and Vi taking the time to be with us. So
And cool to have Steve on with us here on the anniversary of the passing of Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, founder of the University of Utah and BYU, passed away in 1877. Of course, Steve, right down that line of genealogy and representing the young name as he has, and he's done so well, and we're just so grateful to have Steve on the show with us. So our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week comes from Brigham Young.
Brigham Young, who said, "True independence and freedom can only exist in doing what's right." Words to live by.
True independence and freedom can only exist in doing what's right. Thanks to Steve Young and Vai Sikahema. It was so fun. For a minute there, it was their show.
Yeah,
that was just great.
When Vi was telling Steve how he saved his career, and Steve realized that it's actually true.
That was a classic.
That was a classic. Loved it.
Congratulations to BYU point guard Nani Falatea and offensive tackle Kingsley Suamataia. They announced their engagement over the weekend. We wish them the very best. We'll see Kingsley this weekend. We'll be at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on BYU TV at 6 Mountain Time. Saturday night, 2-hour pregame.
Join us for game day. Here we go.
We have waited a long, long time. And Wise Guys, remember we went a year and a half ago when we started. We wanted to be a year and a half in before we start with the Big 12 so that we're not practicing, we're doing. And I think we have hit our stride, and we are ready for the real stuff.
So we'll see you all live on Saturday night over there, linear BYU TV, and then we'll see you again next Tuesday.
Podcast is up tomorrow. Share it with your friends. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, ysguys.com. Have a great week, everybody. The two of us will see you next week.
See you next week.